Now let's start first about your latest album. When you recorded it, your mother was basically dying at the same time. If you now listen to the album, how does it sound to you?
Well, I'll admit that every once in a while I fall into a kind of Rufus Wainwright hole where I'll, put on my iPod and I'll go over my different albums and just sort of, taste little sections of them because they do, hold a lot of memories and I am curious sometimes just to see the progression. And now that I have this album in that canon of work, every time I go to it, I am struck at how just generally, the general intensity of the whole piece is how intense it is, and whether it's the sound of the voice or the sound of the piano or the songs, I think a lot came together on this album. There's a sort of focused sadness, which is also, I wouldn't say uplifting, but it's very dramatic. So it's not like it's the intensity kind of gives you some kind of energy. So it's not it doesn't put you to sleep, but it can sometimes. But it is. But yeah. So I think it's definitely touched this record.
You also sing some Shakespeare sonnets.
Yes.
On your latest album. Why Shakespeare?
Well, I mean, I worked with Robert Wilson, the great theater director, in Berlin at the Berlin Ensemble, and we did a piece based on the Shakespeare sonnets called Sonnets. It's a fantastic piece. It's still there in the part of the repertoire, and I, having come into contact with those poems and really, digging into them and studying them and living in them, you can't help but be affected by it because they are arguably the greatest poems ever written. They're right up there. So naturally they just kind of seeped over into my real life. I mean and especially also with the way that Robert Wilson works with things. He's very surrealist, very kind of undefined boundaries, and so it was allowed to come into my world, and then they found themselves on the album. So they're incredible works of poetry that everybody should read.
You are on tour promoting your latest album, which is your 8th album, your 6th studio album, but you're still in the marginal somehow. How does it feel?
Well, it depends how you look at it. I mean, it's I have a kind of success that is very rare, even though it's not necessarily, worldwide and, massive. I'm very, very respected. I play, the most beautiful halls in the world. I have, I'll play the Opera House instead of, the arena. Arguably, the Opera House is nicer. So it's, and also my personal life is safe. I'm not hunted down by the media. So that's good. I'd still love to be more famous. I think anybody who's in this business, wants to win. So I'm working at it still. But arguably, I think the success that I have and the fame that I have is really, really very comfortable and makes me have a better life, probably.
You composed an opera more than a year ago, and it premiered in Manchester last summer.
Yes.
Why opera? What interested?
Well, opera was a real is a religion for me. I mean, I converted to opera when I was about 14. It kind of happened in a flash. I was listening to Verdi's Requiem, and next thing you know, that's the only music that I wanted to hear and that I could relate to and that spoke to me. I didn't even particularly like opera, like most children, I thought it sounded weird, but then somehow it all made sense very quickly, and I just went with it. So I've often, gone to the opera or listened to opera music, or studied the lives of the composers and singers, and found great solace and strength in that story. So I just keep hanging out there. But I am still a pop musician. I still live in the pop world.
Now your opera prima donna also got quite bad reviews in England. How did
Well,
you
it didn't. It got some bad reviews and it got some great reviews. It was very divisive piece. I decided to write a musical, melodic, romantic opera. That used a language that is not used anymore, but is heard every night, in every opera house in the world. Aida is sold out every night. So so I think certain critics felt like it was, it didn't it's not worth happening because it's not totally modern. But the audience loved it, and there were other critics who really loved it too, who kind of understood where I was coming from.
Now, do you think that there is room for someone coming from the pop scene in the opera world?
Well, they need someone from the pop scene, obviously, only because it's a popular medium. There's a lot of opera houses in the world, and they've got to get filled, and whether it was the critics loved my opera or not, it was 100% sold out every night. And it's going to Toronto, and it's going to be 100% sold out every night there. People are coming to see it. And that's what, the whole point of the theater is, So it's, I don't think that, my first opera is not a masterpiece, but it is definitely having an effect, and, people are talking about it. And for someone to come from, complete left field, that's a pretty big triumph, just in general, to make an impact like that.
Now, a couple of years ago, in 2007, you paid this homage, this triumph to Judy Garland, and had this huge show in Carnegie Hall, and it was a huge success as well. How was the project for you as a person? How did it affect your personal life?
Well, I still sing those songs. Sometimes, not a lot, but I am actually going to be singing a lot of them this summer, and on tour, just to change up my repertoire a little bit. I wouldn't say that it was more of an exorcism, really, because I had Judy on the brain for many years. I would kind of go into a record store and think, oh, I'm going to buy the new Radiohead album, and then walk out with this Judy Garland album, and I didn't quite know what happened. So she was just constantly floating around my psyche, and so finally I figured, why don't we just do this big concert, and then maybe she can rest in peace. And it kind of happened that way. I still love her, and I listen to her a lot, but I think it was a way of getting a lot of that out of my system.
Why Judy Garland? Why is she so important? What makes her so
Well, I just enjoyed, I don't know, I think I think there actually is a connection between opera and Judy in that she's probably one of the only popular singers who ever kind of treated a song as an aria, really. There's always this intense dramatic arc to her performances, which sometimes work incredibly well and are earth-shattering, and other times are terrible, like opera can be as well. And so I was attracted to that risky behavior, and to that kind of fierce flame that she had.
Now, you have talked openly about your sexuality also in media. Why do you think it's an important issue?
Well, it's a very important issue, only because it's a human rights issue. In in the Western world, we're really kind of spoiled in terms of, you know, as gay people being able to, you know, live a somewhat normal life at this point, and you know, be heard and express ourselves, and though it's still not easy, but compared with, you know, Saudi Arabia or Africa or, you know, parts of Asia or South America, I mean, it's a matter of life and death, and I think that it's always important to remember that, and that it's a lot of gays and lesbians are in extreme danger throughout the world, so it's important to talk about it.
Now you have also talked openly about your drug addict, which is something that never goes away.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, I like talking about interesting subjects, you know, whether it's sexuality, drug addiction, opera, you know, theater, Sibelius, whatever. I mean, I like big, fat, fun subjects. And then somehow, when that translates into the media, it becomes a kind of, you know, stamp or, you know, tattoo on my life, you know, and whereas I just enjoy conversation, but still, you know, in terms of drugs and stuff, I mean, I did go there, and I had that period, and it is, you know, maybe it's just proof that I'm a rock and roll person as well. I was rock and roll for a while, but I think the big kind of goal or the real triumph, shall we say, is to, and this is very lacking in the world of pop music, is that, you know, one can go to the dark side and get a lot of inspiration. I think that's truth. I think that happens. I think it's kind of necessary, actually, in this business to go to that end. But once you get there, to get over it and to then write even deeper material and to travel into more expansive territory and really kind of trump your old, you know, crazy lifestyle, that's the true challenge. And I, you know, and I think I've done that. So if I can be an example of that for struggling, you know, musicians, then that's a good thing.
Thank you very much.